Hello students, welcome to another day of math. Today we're going to be talking about multi-step equations, but more specifically we're going to be talking about equations that have a denominator on one side and there's equation or variables on both sides, and there's more than one term on both sides, which makes it a little bit complicated, right? So, again, just a reminder, and I've lost my little note. Oh well. I'll just write it again. So, just a reminder, our steps for multi-step equations is to first distribute. Okay. That also means ungroup, which is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to do those first. And then after that, you're going to combine like terms. So if you see any like terms on the same side of the equal sign, you do that next. Okay, then you move the variable to one side. Variable has to be all by itself on one side of the equation. To be done, that's our ultimate goal, right? Okay, and if you've done these first three steps, what's left is generally just a two-step equation at most, so that's where we solve, right? So let's start by looking at number 2 here. So number 2, we see we have a group on the left side of the equation. It's being grouped by this -8, so we're going to get rid of that first. Now this is where this is different than what you have seen before. When we multiply by -8, it is going to cancel out on this side like normal. However, we have to multiply to this side as well, right? But there's more than one term. Now, when you multiply or divide, it technically goes to the entire side, which is why it's usually the last thing we want to do. We don't like to distribute when we don't have to, right? But in this case, we have to. That -8 has to multiply with both terms on the other side. So it cancels out here because both terms are being divided by -8, right? So you don't have to worry about anything on the top. But over here, when you multiply, it has to distribute to both of those terms this time. So this side just becomes 19 minus 5m, right? Because they're both being divided by -8, so they can cancel out just fine. This side, though, you do -8 times 4 is -32. And then -8 times 7 is 56, right? Remember my times tables? Yeah. -56. M. Okay, now we are in more familiar territory now, right? It doesn't look too hard now. Well, very intimidating first, right? But really, you just had to multiply and then distribute to this side. And it's all nice and pretty. Okay, do we need the slide? Let me see. No, I think it's better for that. Okay, so a little less glare. Now, next step, we look for like terms. I don't see any like terms on the same side. So now we move the variable to one side. Doesn't matter which one you move, you'll get the same answer either way. I usually like to move it so that your variable stays positive. So let's do that. I would have to move the 56 in that case. Remember, when you're moving the variable, it's a simple add subtract when you're just moving it from one side to the other. So since it's a -56, I'm going to add 56m to each side. Okay. That gives me 19 plus -5 plus 56 is 51m equals -32. And then I would minus 19 from each side. And I would get 51m is equal to -51. And then my last step would be to divide by 51. Divide by 51, and m is going to equal a -1. Okay, not too tough, right? Just multiply each side and you get the, and you distribute on the other side. That's really the new thing, is you have to distribute today when you're multiplying to the other side. Okay, so for example, on number 4, I'm not going to do this one all the way because it's, again, pretty similar to the last one, but just to show you again, you multiply by 5 to get rid of this 5 here, right? So that cancels out, but this side, you have to distribute the 5 to both terms. So you would distribute 5, you'd end up with 4x minus 22 is equal to 30 plus 30x, right? So again, The top on this side did not have to be multiplied by anything because they were both being divided by 5. So when I multiplied this side by 5, it technically canceled out for both those terms, so you didn't have to worry about it. But this side was not being divided by 5, so you had to distribute. Okay? Let's look at something. You can finish that on your own if you want to, but I was just going to show you, again, the key part. Let's look at something that is a little bit more tricky. So let's look on the back here. I'll take my note. Oh, I found my other note. It's on top of my camera. Hey, look, I got 2 now. Yay. Okay. All right. So these problems, when you look at them, look, they've got denominators on both sides. Well, this looks tricky, right? And it does look tricky, but reality is it's not that tricky. So let me show you how it works. And this is going to be kind of going back to maybe some of the math you guys did in elementary school a little bit. So when you had like multiplying fraction, or not multiplying fractions, dividing fractions, you would cross multiply kind of thing. It's similar to that. I know it's not the same thing, but what is going to end up happening is when I multiply this side by 3 to get rid of the 3 here, it cancels out, right? But when I multiply this side by 3, that is not a 3, right? So instead, what I have to do, and again, this is typically true, or this is true when you multiply any fraction by a whole number, right? You're only multiplying the top, okay? So that 3 is going to distribute to everything in the top. Likewise, I want to get rid of this 4, right? So I would multiply by 4, and they cancel out there. Now, but when I multiply this side by 4, it's going to distribute to the top. So basically, the denominator on the other side of the equation distributes to the top of the opposite side. And this is a type of equation you will see on your end of year tests. I've seen this a few times on the end of year tests. So this is what you need to know. Okay, so what we're going to do basically is just distribute the opposite denominator to the top of the other side. Okay, so 4 would multiply to the top on the left, and 3 would multiply to the top on the right. And what you end up getting is 4 times 8 is 32x minus 4 is equal to 30x plus 36. Now that looks a lot better, right? Not nearly as intimidating. I know this work probably might look a little confusing, and I'll do another example just to show you, but basically, again, all I did was I took the bottom number here and multiplied the opposite top. Bottom number here, multiplied the opposite top. Okay? So cross multiply. Okay? All right. Now let's solve this. So, multi-step equation, there's no like terms. Move the variable. Doesn't matter which variable I move. I like to keep it positive though, so let's move this 30x. So to move it, I would subtract, since it's a positive, so minus 30x. That gives me 2x minus 4 is equal to 36. And then two-step equation. You'd add the 4 to each side, right? Gives you 2x is equal to 40. And then the last step, you're going to divide by 2. And x is equal to 20. And that's our answer. Yay! Okay, all right, let's try another one of those. So just to make sure we got it. So let's look at this problem right here. So again, you're going to take the number on the bottom and multiply it to the top on the other side. So cross multiply, right? And again, the reason we do that is we have to multiply by -2 to cancel it out on this side, right? And then I have to multiply this side by -2, and it distributes or multiplies with the top of the equation, since it can't cancel out there. Likewise, you do the same thing with -5, right? -5 you multiply, cancels out, but then you have to multiply the top of this equation because it can't cancel out on this side. Okay? And then you're just distributing to the tops. So this side you're multiplying by -5, right? So -5 times v is -5v. -5 times -10 is +50. equals negative 2 times 6 is negative 12v, and negative 2 times 10 is negative 20. And that is much simpler, right? Now we just solve our multi-step equation. There's no like terms, so I can move on to the next step, which is to move the variable. So we're going to let's move the 12v, negative 12v. So it's negative, so that means I have to add it to move it to the other side. So add 12v. That gives me 7v is equal, or not equal to yet. I still got a plus 50 there. Plus 50 is equal to negative 20. Then, two-step equation, I would minus the 50, right? Since adding, I would minus. Gives me 7v is equal to negative 70. And then, to separate the 7 from the v, I would divide since they're multiplying. So divide by 7. And v is equal to negative 10. And there's your answer. Okay. It's not as hard as it looks, right? Again, cross multiply and you're done, and distribute, and you got your multi-step equation. But if you guys have any questions or concerns, you all have teachers who love to help you. So ask us questions. We're here to help. We want to help, but you just gotta let us know. And I will see you out there.